Okay, welcome to Just a Thought, a YouTube channel where I talk about what I see in the news and my thoughts on it. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So, recently there was an article about the number of baby boomers that still have time left on their mortgage, that have 10 to 15 years left on their mortgage. They're sitting 65, 70. And the premise of the article was something along the lines of, how do you survive retirement with a mortgage? So say your mortgage is $2,000 or $1,500 a month. Are you going to have enough money in retirement to pay for it? And if you don't, what do you do? So the answer is complicated. You probably have to sell your house, but it also brings back this idea of there's a lot of people without enough money left or money in retirement to be able to pay for things like a mortgage. There's a very concerning proportion, which I should probably look up, of the population that doesn't have enough. They have like maybe $100,000 or less in retirement. And when you look at it like that, this is extremely concerning. Social Security checks are like $800 a month, so that's not going to be able to pay for your mortgage. And so they're going to have this mortgage that with coronavirus, they're probably underwater on at this point, or they're afraid to sell, or they just can't sell right now because it's hard to sell real estate whenever you're under a lockdown. So what do you do? And so there's an interesting dichotomy here. There's the baby boomers that have no money in retirement, and then there's also the baby boomers that have a lot of money in retirement. So you have this massive gap there where, on one hand, in 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a gigantic transfer of wealth from the baby boomers to their kids. So that'll be the Gen Xers and millennials. And on the other hand, you have this group, which is also pretty large, of baby boomers that don't really have enough to retire. They probably have a mortgage and they can't pay it off. So what is going to happen? Well, in both cases, right? So either if you have money and you're going to give it to your kids, or if you don't have money, you probably have a house, right? So Americans were sold on the idea of everyone needs to have a house. And I think we're starting to see the unintended consequences, or we're about to see the unintended consequences of one of the largest generations in history all owning one asset class at the same time. So what do I mean by that? The idea that we should put all our eggs in the one basket that is housing, and making that your largest financial decision of your life, is probably a bad idea. Not to say that it's generally a bad idea, like there's a lot of people that have made a lot of wealth off of housing, but like their house will appreciate in value, yes. But what happens when we flood the market with all these houses? I know for me, like there's no way that I would go back and live in my parents' house. It just doesn't make sense. And a lot of the people that would acquire these assets, they're established. They have kids, they have families, they have lives outside of the location of their parents' house. So they're going to probably inherit this thing and most likely put it on the market. And what happens when we flood a market, any market, with the same good or complementary goods? It's going to drop prices, and it could cause the next recession, which if it's a housing recession, it's definitely going to be caused by them. And I think this is where we see the downside of everyone thinking that housing is the safest asset. It's not. Like, it's just not. It would make more sense to diversify. So there's somewhere back here, there's a book called The Wealthy Renter, and it discusses how there's a lot of hidden costs in housing, and it's an asset that's hard to sell. Whereas if you put your money in something else, it'll probably it's more liquid, it's easier to get to, and it's I would argue it's a less risky asset if you put it in, say, S&P 500 or a mutual fund or something like that than housing, just because housing has been so volatile, and there's a lot of houses that, yes, people have made millions of dollars off this, but there's also an entire swath of the country where you could buy a house. Like, I lived in Flint, Michigan in the middle of the Flint water crisis. You could buy a house there for like $10,000, and that was a decent house. These houses were selling for $100,000 not that far long before that. That's the economy there, is that you get one black swan event and your housing goes away. Your house value goes away. Like, and we see these, and this is why you get predatory HOAs where everyone's afraid of their houses going down, because they've invested all of their life savings essentially into one asset. It just doesn't make sense to me. But back onto the topic of baby boomers and their retiring. It's going to be an interesting 10 years. So we have the coronavirus right now that is just completely decimated the economy, and we're going to be in a recession. At this point, I mean, we haven't worked for 15 days out of a quarter. There's no way we're not having negative economic growth. And so, yeah, so there's going to be a recession now. And hopefully during this recession, people become a little wiser, and they get an emergency fund. They get 3 to 6 months or more of cash on hand in case something can happen, which we know there's going to be another recession. It's just how the market works. So, but the recessions will be tempered by rational investors or people with just 3 to 6 months of savings. And yeah, I do think the next recession after COVID will be caused by baby boomers retiring, either retiring or dying. So if they start dying, they're gonna flood the housing market with, I mean, it's not if, it's when they start dying. The housing market's gonna get flooded with these big houses, or not even big houses. So we've started to see the telltale signs of it with the big houses. So the McMansions, a few months ago, there was an article about how they just can't sell them. So these people would build these 5, 6, 7,000 square foot houses, and you just now you can't sell them because none of the Gen Xers or millennials want these big houses because they're expensive to maintain. They're gaudy, they're gigantic, they're way more than one person needs for a house. And we're seeing the same thing in ranches too. So baby boomers grew up on westerns. A lot of them want to be cowboys, so they have these big ranches in Colorado, Wyoming, the West. And those things are also not selling because the jobs are in the city, and the people with the jobs in the city don't want to go maintain a ranch. So we're starting to see the beginning cracks of the beginning unintended consequences of everyone owning real estate, or not even like the American dream, the house with the picket fence and the 2.5 kids. We sold that to a generation, and now we're reaping the benefits of that, right? So they got massive gains in their housing prices, and the people that sold, good for them. But we're going to see a recession from this as well, because everyone that was buying houses and driving up those prices is soon going to be selling houses, either to retire on or because they died and their kids don't want their houses. So I really think that the recession after this COVID thing is going to be caused either by millennial or baby boomers retiring and selling their houses and moving to, say, Florida or Nevada, or by baby boomers dying and their kids selling their houses. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Let me know if you think I'm right. I'm still trying this YouTube thing out, making videos. Let me know if I can do anything better. But yeah, like, subscribe if you think this content's valuable and you like hearing me ramble.